Welcome to the deep dive. We take the material you've shared and really get straight to the heart of it.
Yeah, pulling out those key insights.
Exactly. So you can understand what's important without getting lost in, all the details. Think of us as your guides to becoming well-informed efficiently.
And this time, our deep dive explores King Solomon Tabernacle Ministries.
Right.
You provided us with info from their website and also some transcripts of sermons from their YouTube channel. So our aim here is really to understand what these sources reveal about, well, the church's identity, the leadership, specifically Bishop Maroa, their worship style.
Especially those African cultural roots they mention.
Precisely.
Yep.
And of course, the content, the messages within their sermons.
Okay, let's dive in then. King Solomon Tabernacle Ministries, or kstministries as they often call themselves online.
Yeah.
So their website, it immediately gives you this picture of a, quote, vibrant church dedicated to spiritual transformation and community upliftment through love and worship. But what really jumps out right from the start is their strong emphasis on being rooted in African heritage.
Absolutely. That's not just a side note, is it?
No, it feels fundamental.
And this explicit link between their Christian faith and their African identity, it's quite fascinating. The site mentions decades of ministry.
In the blood driver area, yeah, and beyond.
Which suggests a pretty deep, enduring connection to the local community there.
That long history, it probably builds a lot of trust, and highlights their influence in the region.
Definitely. It suggests that embracing their African identity isn't just like window dressing. It's core to how the church operates and engages.
And leading this ministry is Bishop Maroa. The website is clear. He's the central figure.
Right.
It notes his calling to serve God started since 1984 to date.
Wow, okay. So that's quite a long time, several decades.
It really is.
That kind of longevity in leadership, it often provides a real sense of stability, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Continuity for the ministry.
Yeah, you'd think so. It suggests a consistent vision and probably a deep bond between him and the congregation over all that time.
Makes sense.
So how do they actually express their faith in practice? The website describes their worship as heartfelt.
Okay.
Focusing on connecting with God through music, prayer, praise, the usual elements perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's really notable is how they describe it as culturally rooted worship that celebrates African identity.
Oh, there it is again.
Exactly. They emphasize vibrant expressions of faith, music, and cultural pride in everything we do. It really sounds like their African heritage isn't just, acknowledged.
It actively shapes how they worship.
Yes.
That suggests a very deliberate effort, doesn't it? To tailor their worship, maybe moving beyond what some might see as more Western-centric forms of Christianity.
Right. Creating a space where their African identity and their relationship with God aren't separate things.
But are actually integrated, an integral part of it. Yeah.
And it seems it's not just about what happens inside the church building. They seem quite engaged outwardly, too,
Right.
with the community.
Okay, how so?
Well, the website mentions various outreach programs tailored to uplift the disadvantaged. And there's a youth ministry focused on empowering the next generation.
That sounds pretty standard for many churches, community engagement.
True, but they also specifically highlight a commitment to supporting and uplifting the Black community.
Oh, okay.
Through initiatives focused on empowerment and social transformation, it feels like a very holistic approach, spiritual needs, social needs.
Right, addressing both. That active involvement, it really demonstrates a commitment to, well, living out their faith in tangible ways.
Yeah.
Addressing real-world needs. It shows their faith isn't just personal piety, but it's about collective well-being too. Social impact.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and look at those YouTube sermons. We looked at the transcript for one titled, "The Three Heavens Revealed a Prophetic Revelation of the Spiritual Realms."
Interesting title. Prophetic revelation.
Yeah, what does that imply here? Maybe direct insights, messages believed to be divinely inspired.
Could be. It often points towards that, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was in the sermon itself?
Well, it retells the burning bush story from Exodus. Quite vividly, actually.
Okay, a familiar story.
But what really struck me was the strong emphasis on personal revelation. The speaker, Bishop Aroa, presumably says quite directly, it's not about reading the Bible, it's not about your pastor, it's about what God reveals to you.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty direct statement.
It is. It puts a huge focus on the individual's direct experience with God.
It certainly places significant value on those individual direct encounters. Maybe even potentially taking precedence over traditional authorities or interpretations.
It could be read that way, yeah.
Which, could empower people to feel a very direct connection. But on the flip side, you might wonder about the potential for, lots of different interpretations if individual revelation is emphasized that heavily.
That's a fair point. The sermon also highlights Moses removing his sandals on holy ground, obviously a key part of the story.
Right.
But then it connects this to God being the God of your ancestors, specifically Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, framing God within their own lineage.
Which ties back beautifully to their emphasis on African heritage, doesn't it?
It really does.
By linking the God of the Bible to their ancestral lineage, they're creating this powerful sense of connection, belonging.
Like the God they worship isn't some foreign import.
Exactly. But the God of their own history, their own heritage, deeply intertwined with who they are.
There was also this interesting statement about preaching the gospel of God and remaining as they are. Remaining as they are. What do you make of that?
Well, it hints at a distinct theological perspective, maybe. Almost like a resistance to external pressures to change or conform.
That phrase, we shall remain the way we are, it could indicate a desire to preserve something specific, their interpretation, their cultural expression of Christianity. Maybe reacting against